Hey, what's going on there, guys? Nick here from Absolute MTG, and today we're going to be taking a look at a deck tech for 4-color Rally for the Magic Origins Season of Standard. Now, while we have Courser of Kruphix and Siege Rhino in this deck, this is not your run-of-the-mill Abzan midrange or Abzan control variant. This is actually 4-color Rally the Ancestor Reanimator combo. And basically with all of that, what we're actually doing with this deck is we're playing Dredge. So we're playing cards that put other cards into our graveyard. With that, we are going to bring all of our creatures back that are in our graveyard with Rally the Ancestors. Hopefully we bring back a Purphoros or multiple Purphoros from our graveyard, or maybe we already had a Purphoros on the battlefield. Either way, all of those creatures enter in. Purphoros makes a bunch of triggers of deal 2 damage, and we hopefully just beat our opponent in that one turn and one resolution of Rally the Ancestors. So to start things off, let's take a look at our creatures. So we have 4 Sylvan Caryatid. So the Caryatid is going to help accelerate us along with our mana. Realistically, we want to play our Rally the Ancestors with a X value of 4, sometimes X value of 5 if we have a Sidisi in our graveyard and we can't win in that turn. In that case, we would bring back our Sidisi, exploit, we would find another Rally the Ancestors that goes to our hand, and next turn we can try to do something like that again. Hopefully we have some other triggers of milling ourselves and dredging, and from there we can just kind of get things going again. We have 4 Nyx-Fleece Ram, so the Nyx-Fleece Ram is just going to help us stabilize against super aggressive decks in the early turns. If we're playing up against like something like Mono Red, the Nyx-Fleece Ram can just sit there. It allows us to gain back some life, and it also provides to be a 0/5 body that can block some attacks. We have 4 Satyr Wayfinder, so the Wayfinder, whenever it enters the battlefield, we reveal the top 4 cards of our library. We can put a land from among them into our hand, the rest go into our graveyard, providing it to be a easy way on turn 2 to just dredge and also have a body that we can throw up against one of our opponent's attacks. We have 4 Nyx Weavers, so this guy is really sweet, especially if your opponent's playing things like Thoughtseize, so it allows you to get back your Rally the Ancestors, basically. The Nyx Weaver at each one of our upkeeps is going to mill us 2 cards. And for 3 mana, we can exile the Nyx Weaver, and we can return a card from our graveyard to our hand. So effectively, if we manage to mill one of our Rally the Ancestors, or the only Rally the Ancestors that we've seen in the game, and put it into the graveyard, we can use our Nyx Weaver, exile it, and bring the Rally the Ancestors back to our hand, and then we can actually cast it. We have 4 Courser of Kruphix, which, again, much like the Nyx-Fleece Ram, is just going to help us stabilize against the aggressive decks in the format. It makes sure that we actually are able to make it to the point where we can actually cast our Rally the Ancestors, and we don't just die on like turn 4, turn 5 to a super aggressive red deck. We have our 4 Siege Rhino, which the Siege Rhino just makes math a whole lot easier for us. It's just an effective beater creature if we actually don't get any combos or anything going off on our opponent. And it provides to just have a little bit more leverage whenever you don't have as many creatures in your graveyard. Maybe you were kind of bricking on what you're actually putting into the graveyard off of your activations of your dredge cards. It just provides for some extra free bolts whenever you're actually bringing them back from the graveyard and trying to beat your opponent in one turn. For the actual combo pieces of the deck, we have our 3 Purphoros, God of the Forge. So basically this guy acts as a creature in our grave, so the Rally of the Ancestors is going to bring it back. Otherwise, we would just cast one from our hand and put it on the battlefield, and then from there, resolve a Rally of the Ancestors with a bunch of creatures entering back in. The sweet thing about Rally the Ancestors and Purphoros is that whenever Rally the Ancestors brings everything back from our graveyard, it can bring back multiple Purphoros on the battlefield. Even though they are legendary creatures, all of the creatures enter at the same exact time, so all of the Purphoroses that are currently on the battlefield, when that Rally the Ancestors resolves, are going to realize all of the other creatures that are entering. So long story short, you get a whole lot more activations of your Purphoros. So if you have 2 Purphoros out and 2 creatures entering the battlefield otherwise, then you're going to have double the activations that you normally would with just 1 Purphoros. And then we have a Sidisi Undead Vizier. So the Sidisi is actually pretty great whenever you don't really have anything, you don't really have the combo piece to go off on your opponent. Maybe you're missing the Rally the Ancestors, but you have literally everything else. you can just cast your Sidisi, put it on the battlefield, exploit one of your creatures, and then you're able to find your Rally the Ancestors. Equally, if you're not able to beat your opponent in just one activation of the Rally the Ancestors, maybe you have some creatures but not quite exactly enough to deal lethal, you can use the Sidisi to exploit one of the creatures that you bring back, and then from there, you can just find another Rally the Ancestors from your deck, put it into hand, and then just rinse and repeat, do it all over again. And then for the non-creature spells that we're playing a whole whopping 8 of them. So we have 4 Commune with the Gods. So for 2 mana, we reveal the top 5 cards of our library. We can put a creature or enchantment from among them into our hand, and the rest go into the graveyard. And then we have our combo. We have the Rally the Ancestors. So X and double white. We return each creature card with converted mana cost X from our graveyard to the battlefield, exile those creatures at the beginning of our next upkeep, and exile Rally the Ancestors. So it provides to be a great way to just kind of really easily laugh at our opponent's removal that they might have for our creatures and just combo them off super, super quick. So our sideboard doesn't have a lot of variation. It doesn't have a lot of singletons that'll help us for a variety of different matchups. So we're actually pretty straightforward and to the point with what cards we want to be playing and what's actually a problem for this deck. So we have 3 Duress, and we have 4 Thoughtseize. So these are going to be siding in for the decks that are playing counter magic. So decks that can play counter spells to stop us from actually casting our Rally the Ancestors, those are the worst. And we actually want to be able to successfully cast our Rally the Ancestors. So being able to just jam a bunch of spells that say, well, look at your opponent's hand, take away those counter spells, and then from there, just keep on playing the game and beating your opponent. That's exactly what we need. We have 4 Arashin Cleric to help us combat the aggressive decks. So again, it helps us stabilize a little bit more if we're getting a really, really awful hand and not really exactly what we want to see. We're drudging the wrong cards away and we just kind of need to have the game elongate for us. The Arashin Cleric is pretty much going to provide that for us against those aggressive decks. We have 2 Reclamation Sage, so this was for a variety of different matchups, but mainly, in my head, it was for the blue-red artifacts matchup as well as the tutelage decks as well. So if either of those decks kind of get out of hand for you and the artifact decks try to out-tempo you with Ensoul Artifact, or the tutelage deck is just trying to mill you before you're able to do anything effectively, the Reclamation Sage is just a good countermeasure. And it's also a creature, so it helps that this isn't a instant or sorcery speed spell that gets rid of an artifact or enchantment, and is actually helping us by us milling it into our graveyard and having another resource to be able to have more triggers off of the Purphoros. And then the last card is Hornet Nest. So this is, again, for like aggressive decks, but also like the Devotion decks as well. So if our opponent has like a Purphoros and they want to swing that Purphoros into the Hornet Nest and give us a bunch of tokens that we can use to just kind of stall the game out and block our opponent's big creatures, then that's great. That's exactly what we want, and we just want to stall as much as possible until we can actually just beat them. And there you guys have it, your rundown on 4-color Rally the Ancestors Reanimator. If you guys enjoyed the video and would like to see more Magic the Gathering content, please be sure to hit the thumbs up button to show your support, and subscribe to the channel. That way, every time a new video is released, you'll get a notification about it. You can follow Absolute MTG on Facebook and on Twitter, facebook.com/AbsoluteMTG, and on Twitter @TheAbsoluteMTG. And if you guys want to take the next step further and personally help out with the channel, with production and upkeep, you can check out the Patreon page, patreon.com/AbsoluteMTG. Thank you guys for joining me, and thank you for sitting through the video and watching. And until next time, guys, peace out.